Good afternoon. J.S. Frankel here, and I'm speaking to you from gray and dreary Osaka. It's raining, not a very pleasant day, but I'll try to make this video as pleasant as possible. Today I'm going to talk about writing what is in your heart. And this is something that's very important to me, and I think that every writer should write what they want, no matter what other people are going to say. And let me give you an example of how I started my writing journey. When I started out, I started writing first person from a guy's point of view because I'm a guy, and people always say, write what you know best. And it does make sense in a way. If you know a lot about sports, if you know a lot about mysteries, if you know a lot about current events and politics, write about that. There's nothing wrong with it, and I think most writers instinctively choose something they know very well and they try to write about it in the best way they know how. But I wanted to grow as a writer. So my first couple of novels dealt with things like superheroes, death and rebirth, fantasies, some action, and a little romance. And those are topics and themes that I knew about fairly well. And while my first two novels really didn't set the world on fire, they did give me some good basic training on how to set up a story. But it wasn't until my third novel, Twisted, and my editor was Patty Schramm, and I credit her with helping to shape me into a semi-decent writer, that I started to think about writing something different. So up until that point in time, I had always written from a guy's point of view. And it's easy because I'm your typical straight guy. I'm white, so I suppose that gives me a sense of privilege. I don't know if it does, but that's what people think, so let's go with that. Twisted was a novel, it was a gender switch novel, and I wanted to approach it differently than other novels of that genre. Most other novels have a guy turned into a girl either by magic or science or a combination of both. And suddenly their mindset changes from a straight guy wanting to sleep with women to being a beautiful woman wanting to sleep with men. Now, I'm sorry, okay, it's a fantasy, but reality-wise, it just doesn't work that way. So Twisted had your average cisgender straight guy, Charlie Matthews, putting his mind into a computer, so to speak, a la The Matrix, and because of a glitch, he winds up in a woman's body. And he has to deal with not only adjusting to being in a woman's body, and he can't get out, and his brother and another woman, young lady Sharon, they can't get out either because of let's say, just the science behind it. He has to deal with not only becoming a woman, he also has to deal with falling for Sharon. And in his upbringing, he always thought that guys went out with girls, and that was all there was to it. And suddenly he's attracted to a woman, and he's a beautiful woman himself. And he's thinking, is this right? Is it good? Is it proper? And I wanted to explore that particular line of thinking. And the whole point of the novel was you love who you love, no matter what form they're in. And that extends to everyday life, whether it's a same sex relationship or an interracial relationship or a straight relationship. You love who you love, period. That's how I felt, and that's how I still feel. And from that point on, I started to think in a different direction. I still wanted to do young adult novels because I liked them. I still wanted to do action. And I still wanted to toss in a little romance because life is a mixture of everything. Alan Moore put it best, and I won't bother repeating what he said, but I firmly believe that. So I like to do a little bit of everything in my novels: action, romance, a little sci fi, sometimes a happy ending, sometimes a happy for now ending. Uh, I'll get to that in a future installment. But I wanted to do something different. So I started to think, what would happen if you had a young lady who was gay and she was looking for a girlfriend the same way a straight guy like me, if I were younger, would look for a girlfriend. And that's how Lindsay versus the Marauders came about. And I wrote 2 follow-up novels to that, and they all turned out pretty well. The point of all this is you should never worry so much about what other people will think, but what you're going to do with your novel. Now, I must throw in a couple of cautions, and I think it's only right for every writer to observe these cautions and to keep them in mind while they're penning their novel. Number one, if you're a guy and you're straight and you're going to write about 2 gay women together, or if you're a woman and you're going to write about 2 men together, or whatever, then you have to do your research. That's number one, that's prime. You have to ask people who are in a same sex relationship about what they have to go through every day. If you're a guy and you're going to write about, say, a relationship between a straight guy, and a trans girl, then you have to do your research. And that's what I did for Picture Imperfect, because the novel deals with just that premise. A young teenager, he falls in love with a trans girl. He doesn't know she is at first. Then he finds out, and he has to deal with his own perceptions of his own sexuality and orientation. And he comes to the conclusion that it doesn't matter. Dating a trans girl doesn't make him gay or weird. It doesn't make him anything except a guy who likes a girl. And that's how it is for Nolan and Mia in Picture Imperfect. But I did my research. I read every single article I could on trans people and the problems they have to face and the statistics concerning them vis-a-vis crime, vis-a-vis public opinion, relationships, marriage, what have you. I read whatever I could, and I consulted a few trans people and asked them. And they said to me, well, no 2 stories are exactly the same. So write what you think is best. And if you think it's wrong, cut it out. And that's exactly what I did. And I did consult people. And quite frankly, I think the novel's pretty good. But here's another thing. When you write what's in your heart, even if you think it's good, chances are it's going to piss somebody off. And there's no nice way to say it. Someone is always going to be offended by what you write. Even if it's a boy and a girl together, or a man and a woman, a young man or a middle-aged man and a woman together, somebody is going to find fault with what you write. So be prepared for it. When I wrote the Lindsay Jo trilogy, some lesbian readers, quite frankly, didn't like it. They said there's nothing wrong with the books per se. They simply didn't like the idea that a straight guy was writing lesfic, and I was intruding on their turf. And I understand that point of view, I really do. But my primary concern was to write a decent novel, something with action, something with aliens. There's aliens, there's always aliens. Something that would be interesting, that would make people want to read it. And quite frankly, I think it turned out well. I don't claim it's the greatest novel ever. I don't claim to be the greatest writer ever. I don't have some kind of literary god complex. I think I'm a good writer, but I always know that I can improve. The point is here, some lesbian readers didn't like that. Some didn't care. Most of the writers I know didn't really care one way or the other. In fact, they were very supportive. And the same with the trans community. By and large, they have been very supportive, and I thank them for that. When I sent a few copies of Picture Imperfect out to some trans people I knew, they responded quite favorably, and they said, okay, we can quibble with your writing style, but we can't quibble with the message. And overall, it's pretty solid. So that's my thing. Write what is in your heart, but do your research. Consult other people. Be aware that if you're, say, white and straight, if you write about a character that is transgender or gay or lesbian or a person of color for that matter, other people may not see it the same way as you do. So be prepared for some criticism. If you are prepared for that, then write it, do your best, have respect for the subject you're talking about, and take it from there. That's all I can say. Don't limit yourself. I try not to limit myself with anything. I have used gay and trans characters in the past. I probably will in the future if the story warrants it. If it doesn't, then I won't. But I will always try to keep in mind the basic tenets of having respect for the subject material, having respect for the characters, and having respect for the real life communities. I think every single writer should have that same kind of respect and keep these points in mind. So, from Gray and Rainey Osaka, this is J.S. Frankel, YA fantasy author, signing off, and have a great day. Thank you.